y'all. Welcome back to Spirit of the Outdoors. Another episode of Just in Time. I've been thinking about really a topic more than scriptures. And I looked for some scriptures, which I already kind of knew, I guess, probably the ones I wanted to talk about. But the topic, are you willing to fight? Are you willing to fight? I get a lot of people that, oh, Jesus paid the price. Jesus did everything. Jesus. And he did. He paid the ultimate price. He paid with his life. He faced some things. But as you look at the whole Bible, the entirety of the work, you get the attitude of God, the way he thinks, from his actions, the way he responded, the way he did people, the way things laid out and played out. You figure out what his intentions were. You find that he don't like arrogant people. He don't like self-loving people. He likes humble meekness. He likes people that'll work, people that don't mind sacrificing, people that'll give, people that love other people. But he likes people that are willing to fight. See, there was a man that backed up and stood his ground in a field of beans one day. And I really wasn't even intending on talking about him, but everybody else was fleeing, and he said, no, this is as far as I'm going. And the Lord empowered him and gave him strength and helped him to defeat several hundred folks by himself. He stood and said, this is my field of beans. So with that mindset, you can't help but go to Judges chapter 6. And I don't know exactly what scriptures I want to read here. But in Judges 6, I'm going to read verse 11 and 12, I know. And there came an angel of the Lord and sat under an oak which was in Ophrah, that pertained to Joash the Abizarite, and his son Gideon threshed wheat by the winepress to hide it from the Midianites. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him and said unto him, the Lord is with thee, thou mighty man of valor. Now I want you to stop and think about this. Gideon's hiding from the enemy. He's sifting through wheat by a wine press. Now, a wine press is a hole that was dug to press wine that it would drain. It is not out where you would normally sift wheat on a hill, where you would throw it up and the wind would take the chaff away and the seed would fall down. He's picking through it in a hole, hiding. And an angel says, thou mighty man of valor. You mighty warrior. You tough guy. You bad to the bone. Gideon said, no, I'm the least of my father's house. I can't do nothing. I'm not able. You go through and you read all of chapter 6 and chapter 7. And he says, no, Gideon, you go and you're going to fight. And Gideon suits up and takes off. Gideon leaves everything. Gideon left letting everybody know that I'm going back to fight for the Lord. You go over to chapter 7, and I'm not going to read all this because it's a lot of reading to it. You can go back and read it if you don't believe me. Gideon gathers up several thousand people join him. We're going to fight with you. God said, tell everybody that's married to go home. Gideon sends them home. Do this. Cuts out a bunch more. Let everybody drink from the creek. All right, everybody that drinks this way, send them back. Whittled it down to they was 300 men out of several thousands that was willing to fight with him. And I could see that Gideon is, in my poor old country boy attitude, Gideon's looking around going, now Lord, what are you doing? We had a big army of people. We had enough people that we could have whooped several folks. And now we whittled down to a handful of people. And you want me to go fight this army? To go fight this enemy, attack this enemy encampment? But you'll find that Gideon went. Gideon said, okay, I'll go. And they wound up not even having to fight. But Gideon was willing to fight. Gideon was willing to lose. Gideon was betting all of his on the Lord. Because the Lord had told him, Gideon, if you'll go, I'll give you victory. He done sent an angel to him. There wasn't no doubt in Gideon's mind. I thought about David. David was just a run of a boy. Wasn't much to David. Just a shepherd's boy. When Samuel went to anoint, he started trying to anoint every one of the brothers. Lord kept saying, no, this ain't the one. Samuel said, is there any more? Jesse, have you got any more boys? He said, well, I got one little one. He's off in the field looking after some sheep. He said, go get him. He was the least of his father's house. He was the smallest. He was the youngest, the least deserving, the most unworthy. God said, that's the one I want right there. He's the man. We find David taking dinner to all of his brothers. They all fighting a war. Philistines is gathered up in a valley. And they got this giant of a man named Goliath that's out there screaming at them, provoking them, belittling their God, talking ugly about their army and their women and their people and how weak they are and how far. Got this whole army of Israelites hiding. David said, is nobody going to go fight this giant? No, he said, I'll go. I'll fight him. Now, when you start looking at it, David wasn't much to him. He was a run of a boy, a little boy. Wasn't no whole lot to David. David was willing to fight. Not only was David willing to fight, David was willing to die. You know, David thought in the back of his mind, I'm fixing to go out here and give my life, but at least my God will know which side I stand on. When I walk out here and I toe up with this giant of a man that's screaming curses at my God, I'm not going to stand here and listen to this. Either my God is real and he's going to help me, or I'm going to die right here. But if it's not real, if God's not real and God ain't going to back me up, I'd rather be dead. I'd rather be put in a hole in the ground because there ain't no whole lot to live for after that. David had to fight. David had to pick the rock up, and David had to put it in his sling, and David had to draw back. David had to sling the rock. The Lord gave him the battle. The Lord guided it. The Lord drove it home. The Lord guided it where it was supposed to go. The Lord gave him the strength and the anointing. I'm talking to some people. You've been afraid to fight. You've been afraid God would fail you. That if you tried to step out, that God wasn't going to be there to back you up. That's called unbelief. That's called lack of faith. I don't care what you have professed with your mouth. I don't care what you have said, I think or I believe. If your actions ain't backing it up, it ain't in your heart. And that's where it counts. If you're unwilling to step out by faith on a limb and fight the battles that's before you, ain't worth no whole lot, is it? You got to be willing to fight. You're going to face some things in your life. You're going to face some circumstances. There's going to be some things happen in life that you don't like. So opposition. You're going to have to resist temptation. You're going to have to do the right thing when it ain't easy to do. You're going to have to make the right choices when they've done you wrong and they've hurt you, and you got to suck it up and go on about your business and let it go. You're going to have to fight some battles. That battle is going to be fought inside your heart and inside of your mind. When you make up your mind, you know what? I'm going to do what's right regardless of how it looks. If it makes me look like a weakling, if it makes me look like a coward, if it makes people think that, you know what, because he's more important than your pride. You've been scared to step out with some things in religion, things that you have read in this Bible that you're afraid of. Put it to the test, because either he's real or he's not. If he can't back up what's in this book with you, how do you expect to fly out of here when the rapture happens? How do you expect the Spirit to quicken your mortal body from a grave, that you're going to be caught up to meet him, if you ain't got enough faith to believe what this book says and put it to the test? At some point, you're going to have to back it up. You claim that you love him. You claim that Jesus Christ is everything. But if the world makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, you say, well, I don't know about that. Bible says not to do this, but I really don't think this is necessary, because everybody else is doing like this, and I don't want to be different. I don't want people to ridicule me. I don't want people to look down on me. I don't want people to think I'm crazy. Sometimes the Spirit's speaking to you in the darkness, and you laying in your bed at night talking to you. You say, God, if I follow through with what the Holy Ghost is telling me, people's going to think I've lost my mind. If I step out by faith and start doing things for God that he's trying to push me to do, I'm not able. God's calling to you to come on to me. Just step out by faith and just walk to me. And the whole time you're saying, but I'm going to fall. But I can't do it. But I'm not able. I can't do this. I can't quit drinking, and I can't quit all this other stuff I'm involved in. I can't get away from it. I can't fight that. Yeah. How you think David felt when he stepped out on that battlefield? How do you think Gideon felt when he left to go and attack an encampment of people with 300 men? Yeah, we probably gonna die right here. But at least on my marker, when they put over my headstone, it'll say, here lies a man of faith. Here lies a man that died believing, that he kept the faith to the very end. No, God will fight your battles for you. There's going to be some disappointments. There's going to be some times you blunder. There's going to be some times that your unbelief lets you down. But there's always time to get up. Because somehow Gideon found himself at a wine press hiding. At some point through there, Gideon had got weak in faith. At some point, Gideon become a coward, and he was afraid, and he didn't believe, and he was weak. God didn't even see that. God was looking ahead the whole time and sent an angel to confirm it and said, "Thou mighty man of valor." I don't see a weak man hiding at a wine press. I don't see a weak man running from the enemy. I see a man full of potential. I see a seed inside of a man that I think I can use. You're going to have to get up from your feeling sorry for yourself, from your lack of faith, and say, you know what? Either God's going to deliver me, or we're going to prove that he ain't real. Taste and see that God is good. Because God will back his word up. God will show up for faith. Whatever you're fighting, whatever you're struggling with, you give it to God. You got to be willing to fight. You can't just say, well, I can't do this and I'm going to give up. I can't quit drinking, or I can't quit doing this, or I can't step out by faith, or I can't be a preacher, I can't be a minister, I can't do this. It's like the old saying down here, I can't, never could. You got to start deciding, you know what, he's going to help me, we're going to do this. He's going to back me up, we're going to make it. I don't know how, I don't see the way out, I don't see the answer, but I know we're going to make it. He backed up Gideon with just 300 men. He backed up David when David just had a rock. It ain't about you. It ain't about your abilities. It ain't about your talents. You see, you're looking at just an old country boy. I hadn't been to Bible college. I hadn't lived a whole lot of life. I've lived a good bit. I've been through some things, but I've made a lot of mistakes. I was just an alcoholic. Just an old drunk. Everybody said that old boy ain't going to amount to a whole lot of nothing. He ain't been nothing but into trouble from the time he was a kid. Ain't much to him. Not a good speaker. Got a thick southern drawl. Half the time you can't understand what he's saying. Ain't much of an education. And I said, God, I can't do that. And I run from it. I run from a calling that was in my life that I knew was there. I didn't think nobody else knew it was there. I think a couple of people did, but most people didn't. I knew it was there. But I said, God, I can't do that. I can't be a preacher. I can't win souls. They don't nobody like me. They don't nobody want what I got. That's just what you saying. But it ain't about you. It was never about me. It still ain't about me. It's about him. And he'll back up his word every time. He said, my word will not return void and empty. It's sharper than any two-edged sword. He said, rightly divide this word. Study to show thyself approved. Get in it. Read it. This is the only thing you need right here. It'll fight for itself. I don't have to argue to defend it. It defends itself. If somebody don't want to believe it, if they want to try to twist it around, that ain't my job to fix them. That's between them and the good Lord. All I got to do is my part. Preach the truth. Read it. What does it say? And preach it. If you don't like it, that ain't my problem, honey. That's between you and the Lord. But I'll tell you that it's real. I'll tell you that there's a delivering power in there. When you get filled with the Spirit till you speak in other tongues, I don't care if you think that's necessary or not, I'm telling you it's real, because it took that desire for alcohol, that battle that I couldn't fight on my own, that power that came from this book I read about. And I found out it was real. It wasn't just some crazy myth that was in here. It wasn't just some crazy idea that people had that, oh, I don't believe, oh, I don't know. But you know, I'm not concerned about what you believe or don't believe. Just like Gideon. Lord, I can't, but you can. At some point, you got to quit having unbelief and you got to try it and see. It'll deliver you. It'll break those chains that's holding you back. You fighting a calling in your life? Answers is in this book. First off, you got to be willing to fight. You got to say, you know what? Live, die, sink, or swim. No matter what happens, I'm in this all the way. Sold out. There ain't no backing up now. I'm selling out to God, and I'm going to give it everything I've got. And if we die, we'll all die together. But they won't ever be able to say that we was afraid. They won't ever be able to say that we didn't try, that we didn't give it all we got. Are you willing to fight today? Are you willing to fight? Because your actions and how you respond to what this book says is how he's going to respond to you. You see, if Gideon had stayed by the wine press, he'd have never fought. If David had stayed in the field with them sheep. See, it's all right to spend some time in the field with the sheep. It's all right to find yourself hiding by the wine press. It ain't all right to stay there. It ain't all right to continue to sift wheat by the wine press. It ain't all right to continue to serenade the sheep. Serenading the sheep is a good thing. It's a good place to be. It's a good place to start. It's a good place to get your foundation. But at some point, you got to be willing to fight. You got to be willing to get in a prayer closet and go to battle. You got to be willing to shove the plate back a few days and fast. You got to be willing to get in this word and read and study and say, what does it really say? I know what I've heard, and I know what this person has said, and I know what that person has said, and they don't all agree. I want to know what this really says. And then you got to say, Lord, now what do you tell me, God? Because God will speak to your heart. God will talk directly to you. You may not hear an audible voice, but you'll know when he's speaking to you. This word is alive. It's quick and sharper than any two-edged sword. The thing about that is it can do as much damage as it does good. You put it in the wrong hands and people twist it around. And as we talked about previously with false prophets, they can lead you astray. It cuts both ways. It can do a lot of damage if you're not careful with it. But when you filled with the Spirit and you using it in the right way, there's a lot of power in this. And I don't have to defend it. It defends itself. You've been struggling with stuff. You've been saying, I can't do this. I can't make it. I'm telling you today, you can. But you got to be willing to fight. Are you willing to fight? I love y'all. Praying for you. If you'll do a little better today than you did yesterday, tomorrow will be a better day. God bless all of you. We'll see you next time.